Terry Salazar on the side with that, which he has done frequently now. And so, you know, we keep building that. We have about 12 million acres of land and water that we're responsible for. We do that with a staff, really, a staff of about 1,400 rangers, if, you know, to put that kind of thing into context. But the thing that I was talking to the National Management for, and some of the things that we're faced in the Corps as other agencies are going to be faced with, as we look at 12 and beyond, with the budgets the way that they're being proposed and some of the issues that the President's going to have to deal with across the board, what I told the National Management Board is some of these numbers aren't going to change. We've got 422 lakes. That's not going to change. 12 million acres, 55,000 miles of shoreline, actually 55,008 miles of shoreline. That's not really going to change. But for us, what may change is the number of recreation sites. I'm not sure that we have the wherewithal to continue operating and maintaining our portion of those 4,255 sites. Number of campsites, 93,800. That will probably change in the future. And I'm not going to tell you which way I think it's going, but you probably can imagine. Number of boat launching ramps. This one's pretty near and dear to me because from my perspective, what the Corps of Engineers does better than most anybody else, and that's not to take away from any of our partners in reclamation or BLM or other federal agencies or state agencies, but one of the things we do very, very well is we bring people to water. We bring people to shoreline. At 55,000 miles of shoreline is critical for me. I think it's very important because it's what gets kids outdoors, it's what gets families outdoors, and it brings them to our areas. And then boat launching ramps, 3,550. I think that's a very important number because for us, access to get onto the water, access to fish, access to sail, access to have a great evening cruise like we just did, those are important things for us. So let me give you a little bit of the history of the Corps in the recreation program. We got started really way back in the 1870s. Protection of Yellowstone, protection of Yosemite, Sequoia, a couple of other places like that. But we really got into the business in 1944. We were building large projects before that, the Corps was. Large flood control, hydroelectric projects, navigation projects before. But in 1944, the Congress gave us the authority to actually build and operate recreation areas. Now, one thing that was recognized in that by the Congress and by other folks at that point in time was they also recognized that the state and local participants around these projects had a role in recreation too. Now that comes back to us in a variety of ways, cost sharing, things like that, as we have tried to implement our program over the years. But in 1944, the Congress said, Corps of Engineers, you can go out and build and operate recreation sites. So it became part of our authorized project purposes on that 12 million acres of land and water that we operate. So who do we serve? And again, I'm speaking of the Corps now in this context. 80% of our projects are within 50 miles of a major metropolitan area. I mean, if you go around Atlanta, we kind of ring Atlanta with 3 major projects up there, Lanier, Allatoona, and Carter's. If you go to Nashville, Old Hickory upstream, J. Percy Priest almost in downtown, Cheatham just downstream. You come to Fort Worth, Dallas, you've got the Trinity projects, as Doug was showing you this afternoon. So 80% of our projects are within 50 miles of a major metro area. 90% of our recreation is day use. We have a lot of campsites, you heard that, but 90% of our recreation is day use. And that may just be somebody coming back home for lunch, taking a walk down on the shoreline. It may be somebody coming to a picnic area, bringing the kids out to play at the playground, go to the beach, whatever. So 90% of our visitation is day use. And our visitors are extremely diverse. We have particularly a large number of projects in the southeast and the southwest, so we get a wide variety of visitors. So what are the impacts of those projects? What's the value to this country of our projects? Well, yeah, I mentioned we do navigation work. We have a big navigation program. a big hydropower program. But the value of this recreation piece, very significant to the quality of life and value to the country. The benefits economically in and around our projects, you can just see it right here at Grapevine. With Gaylord, what they bring in, Bass Pro downstream, Cabela's upstream, you know, all of the good stuff that a project like this that's been in existence for a number of years brings to a community. I mean, Ross Perot lived out here, built his own airport, you know, so, you know, what can you say about that? I mean, $18 billion of economic benefits annually are derived in and around our projects, just from the activities generated there and the visitors to those projects. When you talk quality of life, open space, areas to go where you can pursue environmental pursuits, bird watch, whatever the case may be that tickles your fancy, providing a quality of life. I like to say, particularly, I used this on the mayor of Nashville one time, you know, we've got an island of green in the middle of a metropolitan area. J. Percy Priest doesn't have any houses right up on the shoreline. We built and bought away from the shoreline. So you can go out on Priest, and you're 7 miles from downtown Nashville. There's a couple of places you can go out on J. Percy Priest. It's like you can probably do up on Ray Roberts around here, and look around and probably not see a house, but you're just surrounded by a rim of trees. And you know, those things are getting more and more precious as the country, as we age, as our kids come up, and everything else. Education for youth, educational opportunities at our projects, it's just great. There's special places for events. Oh, whether you want to run a triathlon, run, swim, bike, triathlon, fishing tournaments, 20,000 plus fishing tournaments at our projects every year. So, and we like to think too, and Doug has talked about this, Brian Phelps has talked about it here. I think that the core team that operates the projects in their areas are active members of the community. They become participants in parks and recreation departments, in activities for schools, things like that. So I think the core can provide that, and we need to continue to do that. Okay, some of the things that we're facing. You know, we went through a series in operating and kind of maintaining our program across the board. We went through a couple of programs in the last 20 years, 25 years, where budgets or other factors have caused us to take a look at how many parks we operate. We went through a closure program in the early 80s that was really difficult to implement, and it was hard for the people at the projects to really get done properly. We didn't have a lot of buy-in for it. We were directed to do it, and we just started putting up gates. Not the right thing to do. But we ended up closing a little over 400 parks across the board, 200 and some of them permanently, others partially. So that wasn't a great program. In 1990, we were told to try it again, and that met with considerable congressional resistance. We got a lot of feedback on that. Never actually implemented the thing, but that's some of the difficulty that we're looking at, because right now I can tell you, from the Corps of Engineers perspective, the last 4 years we've had, I mean, it doesn't hardly get any more constant than this. Our recreation budget across the board has been about $270 million. 270, 273, 275. Doesn't keep up with inflation. It's a flat budget, so you're actually losing. I'm looking at 12. It's not going to be near that. It's going to be a very difficult budget facing us in 2012 if things go the way that they are looking right now. And that is why we have pulled together this recreation strategy. One of the things that we're going to have to do is facilitate our great working relationship with the volunteers at our projects. We had over 60,000 people volunteer in the last year. A tremendous number of folks come out that we don't even properly register. They just come out to do stuff and do stuff with us. So we had 60,000 registered volunteers. Tremendous asset. the partnerships that we have with concessions such as this one, with folks like Gilbert and his team in other areas across the country, partnerships with communities, partnerships with the state for operating facilities on our projects. I think it's very, very important for us. International Mountain Biking Association just last year dedicated a trail at Raystown Lake that if you are a mountain biker, this needs to be on your agenda. You put it on your bucket list to go do that if you want. This is a tremendous facility, the longest one of its kind, and it is a very varied, excuse me, but a very varied trail there, and it's really pretty fantastic. Lake Ouachita, we used about a $10,000 handshake agreement, I think it was, that was leveraged into hundreds of thousands of dollars in the end result of a great trail on the south side of the lake. So what we're looking at from an agency perspective is putting together a recreation strategy right now that takes all the elements of our program and gives the managers, the on-the-ground managers, the on-the-site managers like Jeff Boutwell, Brian, give those folks the tools that they need to assess their program. I'm afraid, and I'm just looking at it in the context of our program as a whole, we have such a dedicated team. The Corps really does have some great folks particularly in our operations arena, where I think somebody comes onto the project, they begin a career on the project. If they walk in the door and there's 10 parks there, and they're managing 17,000 acres of other land and stuff, when they walk out the door, whether it be to take another job or at the end of a career, there's probably 10 operational parks, 17,000 acres of land. We're just simply not going to be able to do that in the future. What we're going to have to do is take a look at the footprint that we have and make some modifications, make some changes, but make them in an open way, in a collaborative way, so that folks understand why we're doing what we're having to do and perhaps have the opportunity to step up and work with us on what we're trying to do. Now, that may mean, you know, I'm going to go back to that park or that lake with 10 parks and 17,000 acres. That doesn't mean that we're getting out of the business. What I think that means, and what it means to me, is we'll reshape that, and maybe we'll provide water access on the upper ends of the lake, provide a quality facility for day use in one place, and maybe 2 or 3 campgrounds. We may move from 10 parks to 5, 6, 7, but we'll consolidate facilities, we'll work those, and try to do a better job of providing the recreation opportunities in that area or in that region. We're going to ask folks to take a look not only at their project, but at the lake next door, or other recreation providers in the area. And if there's better day use facilities at a national park, or better day use facilities at a county park or a state area, maybe we don't have to have all of the day use facilities at our project that we've traditionally maintained, and maybe we can reduce the scope of that, put the funds back into our overnight camping project or our overnight camping park, and really, really improve the quality of that. Maybe expand it, add sites to it, add restroom, add other things that are necessary for folks who are coming out. But that's what this recreation strategy is all about. And we're going to have to do that just simply. We're faced as an agency with that. We have struggled to keep going at this $270 million level. So we're having to make some really, really hard choices here in the future. And to do that, I think we're going to really depend on a partnership perspective with the folks that we call stakeholders, we call partners right now. We need to enhance that